Tu Dinero en Acción, episodio 88. Hola, soy Javier Acción, asesor financiero independiente autorizado y registrado en la Comisión Nacional del Mercado de Valores con el número 149 y asesor del fondo de inversión Acción Global. Te doy la bienvenida a Tu Dinero en Acción, tu podcast de inversión, donde hablaremos de manera sencilla y cercana de conceptos, métodos y alternativas para rentabilizar tus ahorros. Si te planteas sacarle partido a tus ahorros o quieres descubrir qué opciones te interesan más, te invito a quedarte para aprender sobre finanzas con un lenguaje directo y sin tecnicismos. Si tienes alguna pregunta, duda o sugerencia, puedes contactar con nosotros utilizando las distintas vías que encontrarás en nuestra página web www.accioninversiones.com.
El contenido de este podcast es divulgativo. Las opiniones aquí expuestas son meramente informativas y en ningún caso suponen una recomendación de inversión. Si buscas asesoramiento financiero, debes dirigirte a cualquiera de los asesores autorizados y registrados en la Comisión Nacional del Mercado de Valores. La entrevista que estáis a punto de escuchar se ha grabado en inglés. Podéis verla subtitulada en español en vídeo.
Hi everyone, we are here today with Olle Backman. He's the CEO of Vitec Group Software, is one of the main positions of our Acción Global fund. We are happy today to have the big opportunity of interviewing one of the CEOs of the companies we are invested in. Thanks so much all for having the time today with us.
Thank you.
One of the main targets of our podcast is to have the opportunity to put very close the people that are making the decisions in the companies that we are invested with the partners of our fund or the people that save this money to be invested. So I think this interview is one of those opportunities to put very, very close the people that owns the money with the people that are making the decisions. And I think it's a very, very good opportunity for us to get to know better the business of Vitec Software and the people that are making the decisions. So starting with the basics, a bit of background for those of our fund partners that do not know very well the Vitec Software business. Could you please all give us a brief explaining about what the company does?
Of course. Vitec Software Group, we are a software company, as you can hear by the name, and we were founded as such back in 1985 when our two founders, two researchers from the university here, just across the street from our office, found basically they took their thesis and made a program out of it and then started selling it. It was in energy efficiency in real estate. They went on selling that for nearly 10 years or so, and then have built up a nice small company by then, and then they saw opportunities as well to other software companies, how can we pool together, how can we exchange ideas, resources and such. So they started buying companies within the same vertical, still within real estate and energy forecasting. And then they saw, this is going great. And then we basically just moved on from there into other verticals, because we see that software, especially small vertical software companies, are amazingly alike, even if they serve very different industries. So we are basically a software company that now has 41 different, what we call business units, which is basically companies. So we're 41 companies, basically 1,500 employees. We have 5 home markets, the 4 Nordic countries and also the Netherlands. And we have a turnover of roughly 2.9 billion Swedish, which is roughly 260 million euros.
Okay, thanks so much. And going to your background as a manager, what about you? What has been your career outside and inside Vitec until you became the CEO of the company?
Yeah, well, I have from the university a background in finance to start with. Worked as a CFO in various companies, both stock market companies and privately held companies up here in Umeå, where both I live and Vitec is founded in Sweden. And then I became the CEO for basically an electrical contractor, so it's a quite a different business from Vitec. But the way we were organized was the same idea as within Vitec. So small, very autonomous business units or companies. And then we built that company up. It was also a stock market company. And we grew that quite significantly to a big size. So I was there for 16 years as a CEO and a part owner. And then eventually we sold that, and then Vitec came knocking on my door for 5-6 years ago. And of course, I've known about Vitec. I know personally the founders of Vitec because it's a small town we live in, so we have sort of coexisted along the way. I joined first as CFO, and then after basically a year and a half, the board asked me if I wanted to assume the position of CEO, and Lars wanted to make that transition over to being a full-time board member instead. And of course, I said yes. So I've been here as a CEO from 2021.
Okay, great. And of course, we as investors, we like family-owned business or owner-operated companies. And we came to Vitec through an interview that Lars, one of the founders, gave in acquires.com. It was a great interview for us to understand better their approach. And do you think in the soul or the culture of Vitec, the impetus of Lars and Olov, the two founders as initial founders, is still reflected in the day by day of the company?
Yes, very, very much so, because the culture and the values of the company have been very consistent over the years, and we have worked really hard to keep it that way. And also when we look at new companies, that's sort of the last tick in the box that we need to see, is that we have an alignment of values and culture. So basically we buy ourselves over and over again the same kind of company, and so we have been managed to sustain that for all these years, and it's also a very important part of what it is to be part of Vitec Group. So yeah, okay. I would definitely say that the culture is very much alive.
And what is their involvement in the business today? Do you think anything will change if Lars decide to step away completely?
Well, of course, I mean, both Olov and Lars. Olov, he retired quite some years ago, back in 2017. Of course, he's still one of the major shareholders. He's very much, of course, we talk to him and he's very well informed of what we're doing. Lars is, of course, chairman of the board, very active so, and I talk to him every week. And he's always there for us. But he's not operational in a sense, and he really believes in this distinction between operations and the board. And both he and ourselves, we are building autonomous units, so it's very important that it's not dependent on any single individual. So we have really built the company to last without us. But of course, Lars is important for us, but no, I wouldn't say that Vitec would be any different without it, because the success of what he has done is that Vitec will actually carry on without him.
Yeah, it's an autonomous animal today. Yes. Okay. Wing or fund, we've been shareholders of Constellation Software since 2018. And we were very impressed when we started the research in Vitec that when Mark Leonard started his adventure, there have been a couple of guys in the Nordics consolidating vertical market software for a while. And in fact, Vitec is the only company that we know that has generated higher compound interest than Constellation or Just Scientific is another of our holdings over such a period of time. No? So how is Vitec different? More focus on the organic growth, pricing, internal reinvestment. How do you see this?
Well, to start with, of course, Constellation and us, I think there are more similarities than there are differences to start with, because we're both in the vertical market software companies. Yeah. But there are differences for sure. And I don't know everything about Constellation, but I can only explain how we are doing things. And we look for mature, high quality companies, so they are usually quite profitable already to start with, because we think that buying quality, and there's always room for improvements, even in the really, really good companies. From what I understand, Constellation, for sure they have really good quality companies as well, but they tend to buy perhaps companies that are in need of more investments or have been neglected in some way, and take it from there. And I know that they are working a bit more aggressively on pricing and things like that. Yeah. We think that it's there are risks with that, because in a vertical market software company, keeping your customers, having that low churn is really key. Because if you lose a customer, you have lost it for a decade or something. That's hence the good part of stickiness is when you have the customers with you. The bad part of stickiness is, of course, if they are with someone else. Yeah. So I think it's a bit different approaches to how hard or how tough you manage the companies to start with. But at the end of the day, we seem to end up in the same place. So there's basically two different paths going to the same target. We think that ours is both a sustainable way and with low risk, basically.
Yeah, some different paths, but both are successful paths. So
absolutely.
Yeah. An important part of your strategy is M&A, of course. What is your approach to mergers and acquisitions? Is there direct contact? Do you use brokers? Is any kind of centralized skills that you have?
Our M&A process is very much centralized because, first of all, we're still not that big, so we don't see that as a problem. And it's also a question of doing everything with quality and repeat and having the best people doing what they are good at. That's one thing. And the other is we strongly believe in focus. So the companies, the business units, they really need to focus on their customers, on their products, and not necessarily running around trying to find new companies for the group to buy. Yeah. So the focus on the organic growth, the focus on getting your margins up, the focus on making your company a bit better, and then we have a centralized view in M&A. So, but of course, we have some direct contacts. If you take 5-6 years ago, there was a lot more direct contact. That has shifted, especially in the Nordics, where there are enormous amounts of M&A advisors. So now the companies are approached by advisors, lots of them. So if we do a cold call, we will probably be number 13 or something, and then they will hang up. So, okay. But we educate the brokers a lot so that they know what we are looking for. They know that we are one of the top buyers out there, so they come to us. Of course, we still do our own search as well, but there's a lot more coming in from brokers today.
Okay. And during 2023, you've made the largest acquisition in your history, if I'm right. That is called Innova. It's a Dutch company. And although its percentage of recurring revenues is high, as the same as Vitec as a whole, it also has a significant weight of transaction revenues, if that's the right name. Could you explain how this part of the business works?
Yes, of course. We split our recurring revenue in two streams. One is the traditional subscription-based, which is basically your SaaS fees, hosting fees, or if you're in the old license model, then it is maintenance fees. So traditional subscription-based. And then we have always had a variable part which we call transaction-based. So that has roughly been like 10% of the revenue for forever, for decades. And it could be text messaging, it could be maps, it could be digital signage, it could be... but they are third-party components. So they are things that we buy, we adopt it to our software, and we deliver it as a value-added service to our customers. And then for Innova, and usually that looks the same in every company. So say 90% is pure subscription and 10% would then be these add-on services. For Innova, it's the other way around. They have 10%, which is their standard software. And then almost not by accident, but along the way, they through their software, they created a virtual power plant because they are an energy efficiency software. So they remote control.
They balance the grid, right?
Yes, they balance the grid. Yeah, and then we take our customers' excess capacity and sell that on the grid balancing market. Yeah. But you still need the software. You can't do it without. You are a software company, and then you've added that, and then in the last 3 years, that market has just exploded. So it has become big. It has become huge.
Yeah.
Right. So now it's they have say 3 million euros of software, and they have 30 million euros of balancing services. But it's a very different component because we don't need to do R&D, for instance. We don't need to invest. We don't need to organize ourselves according to that volume, because it's a volume that we share with our customers. We give them the larger part of the revenue, and then we keep some of it ourselves for delivering that service. So it's a very nice add-on for our customers. It's a very nice add-on for us. But frankly, it is an add-on that is very profitable. So we really like it. But it's still an add-on.
Is it like a take rate?
Sort of, yeah, but as I said, it's just a value-added service that we can provide, and the customers can't do it themselves because one by one they are too small. Yeah. But when we connect them together and we remote control them, so the only way is through a company like ours.
Okay. And is there any kind of cyclicity linked to the inflation or the electricity prices?
More to do with the electricity prices to some extent, but it's more to do if you think that there will be more renewable energy, for instance, more solar power, more wind power, then it gets more messy in the grid, and then you need more balancing services.
Yeah, the storage, the balance. Yeah.
Yes, so there is some correlation to energy prices. But there are three components to this. One is the market size. The volume is one thing. Then price is another thing. And then there's an auction every day and you have to win it. So yeah, it is more volatile, yes. But like I said, there's no risk to that revenue from our perspective. Because either it's there or it's not. We don't hire any more people. If it goes up or down, we don't need to invest to keep that volume up, and it's also a very different gross margin component. Of course, our own software, high gross margins, this is something we share with our customers, the transaction based. So,
and could we think that with the electrification of the economy, this could have a tailwind for the organics, right?
Yeah, but, well, we think so. I mean, everything in the long-term prognosis of how the energy market is evolving, we would for sure need more balancing services. That's anyway what we think. But of course, I mean, in this case, we don't control the market. I mean, it's the big energy companies that do that. So,
okay. In this type of larger deals, do you face greater competition from private equities?
Yeah, in the larger deals, we have seen private equity as direct competition, but usually private equity will be competing with us also on smaller deals, but through their platforms, because the normal size deals that we do are too small. But private equity-backed platforms are very active both in the Netherlands and the Nordics. So for sure, there's a lot of PE money in this market.
Okay. And recently, with the capital cost increase, it will be expected to acquisition multiples will decrease. But at the same time, we have heard that there is more and more competition. So this could offset the effect of the interest rates. What are you seeing there?
Well, if we take the first part of 2022, when interest rates really jumped off, and then of course with the Ukraine war coming and all of that turbulence, we saw a bit downturn on pricing and also a bit volumes going down as well. But then it sort of panned out, so we're not seeing any decrease anymore, because these are what we're looking at are really high quality assets, and
right.
Especially if it's more turmoil in the world, then you look for security and stability, and that's basically everything that we're looking at. So there's still a high demand. So we don't see that it increases anymore, but it's not either going down. So it has sort of stabilized.
Stabilized, okay. And do you think that you still have a large universe of potential acquisitions in Nordics? So will the acquisition of Innova in the Netherlands could be a step towards more acquisitions in Europe? Should we expect more like this in the future?
Yeah, that would be a likely assumption. We were 100% Swedish up until 2011, and then we went to Norway, and then Denmark, and then Finland, and then now 2021 was our first investment in the Netherlands. So now we have 5 companies in the Netherlands. And the more, if you're more active in the geography, then you also get more attention, and then you receive more interest. And so for sure, we are looking at a lot of geographies, but it's not that we are targeting a specific one. So we have the same set of criteria. We look at nice vertical market software companies, and if they fit the bill, if they are in Sweden, or if they are in Germany or in the Netherlands or Spain for that matter, we don't really care, because a nice VMS company is a nice VMS company. Of course, when we move into a new country for the first time, I would say that we are even more picky when it comes to the quality. It has to be quality. It also has to be of a certain size, because we can't support it like we can with the others. So, but
Makes
of course,
sense.
yeah, sure, we look at more companies out there, but we're not in a hurry.
Okay, sounds great. And do you think that as you grow, the company will have to change the strategy, or do you consider doing mergers and acquisitions in a decentralized way, like Constellation or others have done, or is still far in time? This,
I think it's still quite far off, because we're not that big yet. So we can still we have a good funnel. We have lots of opportunities out there, and we also see that it's good to have it centralized still, because it really adds quality to the process as well. And we think also it reduces risks.
Of course, for giving more information to the audience, Vitec Software is capitalizing in the market around, in United States dollars, around $2 billion, more or less. And Constellation Software is higher than 50 billion. So it's perfectly understandable that Vitec has an ocean to grow in front of them, and before changing their processes. So makes sense.
Absolutely. They're 25 times bigger than us.
Yeah. And what is your approach to dilution? Because there are companies like Lifco is another great compounder from the Nordics, or the Constellation, that the flat share count is like a religion for them, because they do not want to rush the model too much, and they always pay only with cash flows and debt. And Vitec has raised some capital in an opportunistic way and regularly use convertibles as partial payment in its acquisition. However, your diluted metrics per share have compounded at a very, very high rate over the years. What is your vision about this?
Of course, the shareholders' money or dilution is by far the most expensive part. So of course we are very mindful of that. We use our internal cash flow, and then we always use that. And then if at a certain point the board thinks that the ratio between debt and earnings, so if that becomes a bit too big, we're adding a bit to risk, or we will be constrained by that in some sense. Then we have looked, okay, how can we sort of delever in a fast pace, and then just continues. And then, like you said, we have raised capital, but always forward looking. We've never raised capital because we have to. So when we see that the debt is a bit too high according to us, and if we still see lots of opportunities out there, then we might issue shares again, and then we will deliver, and then we will just continue, building up that. But that's our approach, and it has been the same for 25 years.
Okay. Different sources of capital, different costs, and make it in an opportunistic way. Okay. So we've talked about inorganic growth. Let's go to the organic. And as far as we know, or as I have understood, your product or your services are inflation lovers, to the extent that your contracts with clients are updated annually based on the price index of each country. And this is not only beneficial for your top line organic growth, but also, hopefully, if your labor costs do not rise as much as the sales, also is good for margins. And now we are coming from a strong organic growth phase, an inflationary phase, or let's say above average. What can we expect from Vitec organic growth in a less inflationary environment going forward?
Well, if you look back in time, because we have a very long history, we have been able to have a decent or even really what we were an organic growth, which we're really proud of, on average, 6, 7, 8%. In different times, it's just a mix of different things. So in a low inflation environment, perhaps price increases is, 2%. But if the economy is doing well, we're able to both new sales and upsales. That is the rest of that. So
volume.
And now, volume. And then, for the past year and a half or so, then inflation, price increases has been really high, but new sales has been really low, but we're still at the same organic growth level. So they tend to sort of balance out a bit. So in good times of and low inflation, we're able to sell better. In a bit worse times, a bit higher inflation, we get the tailwind from the price increase, and we don't sell so much to new clients, but we sell a lot upsales to existing clients instead. Because
developing the software, developing to.
So I mean, we don't see any reason why we shouldn't be able to continue if you take an average over a few years. Looking back, would be a good proxy for the future. So.
Okay, sounds good. And the second one on the organic reinvestment, some investors consider that your treatment of your internal reinvestment in software development, this intangible asset in the balance, which is activated on the balance sheet, it could be seen that artificially increases your margins. However, we who look at everything from a cash flow point of view, we interpret it as something like acquisitions bank, but in an organic growth, in an organic way of investment, let's say growth capex or something, which sustains organic growth in the years to come and is therefore a real value for us as shareholders. What do you think about this?
Well, I think you really made a good point there, because investing in our products, investing in the future and future-proofing them, that's the whole key in keeping your customers. Because if we don't invest now, we will not be relevant in the future. And this is a very long-term game we're playing here. So we constantly need to continue to invest in our products. And like you say, look at the cash flow instead. And also, if you look at our EBIT margin instead, and then we always try to find a balance between activation and depreciation and amortization. So if you add those together, they're usually quite balanced. Or just take the last year, they were even negative. So we depreciated and amortized more. So the EBIT level is actually sort of depressed a bit rather than inflated by this treatment. That's one thing. And the other also is that it keeps you focused, because if you put it on the balance sheet, you're really mindful of the projects that, these projects really have to give a return in the future. So it's also a bit of highlighting the fact that we are investing in our products for the future.
So it needs to be accounted like an asset, because it is an asset. Okay, thanks. According to your way of being more or less open to the capital markets, Vitec is known for being not opaque, but not very, very open to the markets in its reports. You live, or the company is headquartered far from the financial center of Sweden, that is Stockholm, until last quarter, in which you started doing quarterly earnings conference, that there was no calls with analysts, transcripts, webinars, Capital Markets Day. I'd like to congratulate you for that initiative, for the earning calls. Do you think this could be a trend in the future, that you are more open to the capital markets, given that part of your business is deploying capital and having access to the capital, keeping your cost of capital as low as possible, I think is good for us as shareholders?
Yeah, but to start with, we always try to be very accessible instead. But of course, you need to find us for that reason. So, we will continue to do the quarterly calls for sure, and keeping the reports and being as transparent as we can, because there are no secrets basically in the group level accounting that we give out. But we will for sure continue to do that. it's also an effect, of course, that our international sort of shareholders are increasing ever more, and it's a good way for us to communicate with them as well.
Okay, thanks for that. For us, it's very interesting to be informed in English, of course.
Of course.
So we are getting to the end. So we go to that part of the interview that is more philosophical, for saying that way. So we think that the dreams of the people are what moves the companies for nice and higher targets. So talking about the Vitec as a company dreams, where do you see Vitec in 10 years or more?
Madam, we are a growth company, but we always like to grow in a sustainable way. So I for sure think that we will continue to grow in a sustainable way, both organic, because I usually talk to my management team and say, we can only work with the ones we have, right? Don't mind with the ones we don't have. And then we add M&A on top of this, and we will continue to do M&A as well. But I have 1,500 employees. There are 3 guys doing M&A full time, and the other 1,497, they are doing the organic. So just to get the perspective. So of course, we will continue to grow. In 10 years' time, we will for sure be more countries, because we are constantly looking at them. But at the same time, we're not forced to do anything, because the board doesn't put specific growth targets on us. I think that's a good thing, because if you do M&A and you have a specific target, you might end up buying not the best company, but the second best or the third best, because you have to just reach that target. And the board always tells me, okay, well, come back with the best company for the right reasons at the right price, and then we'll buy it.
Okay. So the same way, but bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's more of the same, but bigger.
Okay. And this could be more personal, but where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, first of all, in 10 years' time, I will be 65 years old. So hopefully, if I'm still healthy, and I will continue to support Vitec in some way. I'm really happy in the position that I am today, and plan to continue to do so for quite some time. I can't reach Lars's record, because he was the CEO for 36 years. I started when I was 50, so I'm not going to do that. But
okay.
But hopefully, I'm still here and helping Vitec in some capacity.
Thanks. Sounds great, all. So that's all from our part. I think it's been really helpful for our fund partners to understand better the Vitec business, or your way of making the decisions that are very important for our savings. And thanks so much for your time today, Olov. It's been great in being able to interview you. So I give you last word for your last take, or your last word that you would like to say to us.
Okay, first of all, thanks, Javier, for interviewing us, and we think it's a really nice way to communicate both with the potential shareholders and existing shareholders. But I would also sort of add one thing that we really like is, hopefully people will listen to this, and there are lots of VMS companies out there run by entrepreneurs who might be investors as well. So it is beneficial for us also from an organic point of view to do these calls. So I'm happy to be here.
So if you have a vertical market software business and you like to be in a nice family like Vitec, please contact these people. That is a good home for your business.
Exactly.
A perpetual home.
Perpetual home, yes.
This is the very important word, perpetual. It's a perpetual owner for your home to grow. So thanks so much, all. Happy to be here today with you for a while, and happy to repeat it maybe next year or something to inform maybe a couple of years or something to inform the developments of Vitec and the position that is important for your fund. Thanks so much, all. See you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.